Hello, welcome back to Post It. When we left off, Wolf had seen a mean message that said "So Roman" on his locker. It was in permanent ink, and he stormed out. So Dee Dee and Frost and Rose all skipped school to go find him, and they found him in his backyard where he is destroying those models that he's collected and made for years, the things that are among the most important to him. He's smashing them. And Frost finally comes up with something to do, but weirdly, it means he has to leave. So that's where we left. I was tired of feeling helpless, but before I could do anything, I needed to know who was responsible. I put a hand on Rose's shoulder. I think it surprised her. It surprised me a little, too. I've got to go, I said. Dee Dee looked at me like I was crazy. What? Go where? I'm sorry, I said. There's something I really need to do. You got this? It was a stupid question, I knew. Three of us were on one side. Wolf was on the other, holding a baseball bat and yelling for us to go home. Dee Dee shook his head emphatically, but Rose nodded, and she understood. Yeah, we got this, she said, putting her hand on top of mine. I gave Wolf one last look, but he ignored me. He took another swing, and more pieces went flying as another busted battleship was buried in the grass. I could still make out the explosions of cracked plastic, even when I was a block away. The Joneses lived on the other side of the district from Wolf, in a two-story house with a brick front and a big enough backyard that you could play wiffle ball. I've never had to worry about hitting it over, and never have to worry about hitting it over to your neighbor's house. I had ridden or walked the stretch between Bench's house and mine, with its goose poop bombed sidewalks 100 times. I could do it backwards without tripping over the cracks in the cement. Bench and I were the two members of the tribe who were closest to each other. His house was on the way to school, so I was always picked up first, which is why I was always the one who saved the seat on the bus. I walked slow, planning out what I was going to say. I wasn't even sure he was going to be home yet, because school had barely ended by the time I reached his neighborhood. But I decided that if he wasn't home, I was going to wait for him. I'd sit on the curb until he showed up. I was not leaving his house without an answer. Like with Wolf, I heard him before I saw him. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Turning the corner to find him in the driveway, basketball in his hand. I followed the rhythm of the bounce as he drove to the hoop and then nailed a jumper. All whisper, no clang. It was always a pretty good basketball shot. Bench spotted me at the end of the driveway and immediately looked up and down the street. I remember doing the same thing when Rose showed up at my door. I'd been doing it for weeks now. Just you? He asked, bouncing the ball twice before tucking it under his arm. I came up farther in the driveway so we could talk without yelling. I have never yelled at any of my friends. Not really. Not anyway. Not yet. Just me, I said. He had to know why I was here, but I said it anyway. We need to talk about Wolf. Bench looked at me, shielding his eyes from the sun. Even the chilly air made him work up a sweat. What's there to talk about? It wasn't me. You know that. He knows that. At least he should know that. He started bouncing the ball again, except for he didn't dribble it as much as he did pound it, as if he were trying to bust up the blacktop with each bounce. He turned and took another shot, breaking it off the backboard this time, and he hissed a word that Ruby Sandals had already gotten into trouble for. He seemed mad, which made me angrier. What did he have to be mad about? I got to the ball before he could, snatching the rebound and holding it at my side. Bench put his hands on his hips. Give me the ball, Frost. I shook my head. You owe me one, remember? I shifted it to my chest. I was determined to get his attention, determined for him to look me right in the eyes and tell me the truth. Bench smirked. Right. I owe you one. Whatever. Just give me here. He lunged for the ball, and I twisted, starting an absurd game of keep away. He reached it with one hand, attempting to knock it out of my grasp, and I moved it the other way. He swiped, and I dodged, the two of us choreographing some ludicrous dance in his driveway. Finally, he got both hands on the ball and wrenched it from my arms with a grunt. Grow up, he said. Bench dribbled twice, then took another shot, bricking it again. It rebounded right towards me, and I kicked it. The ball sailed into his front yard, missing his head by inches. What is wrong with you, man? He shouted. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? I yelled back. I guess a first time for everything, right? I couldn't help it. Right now, your friend, our friend, is standing in his backyard smashing up all of his models with a baseball bat because of something that a jerk wrote on his locker, and you're here pretending it's no big deal. I never said it wasn't a big deal, Bench said. I already told you I had nothing to do with it. Bench tromped into the grass after his ball, so that I had to keep shouting at his back. I'll bet you know who did it, though. Was it Cameron? Was it Noah? Was it Jason? Was it somebody else, another one of your friends? Bench froze with his hands on his ball. They're not my friends. He came back to the blacktop with the ball cradled tight. I don't hang out with Cameron and those guys. I don't even talk to him. You know that. Yeah, but people say stuff, I reminded him. Not me. He lined up another shot. Yeah, right. The ball clanged off the rim. We both let it roll past us down the driveway and into the street. What is that supposed to mean? He turned towards me, taking a step closer, and for a moment I thought he was going to push me, so I braced myself. You're telling me you've never said anything about any of us. Not me, not Wolf, not Rose. Don't bring Rose into this, Bench said, holding up a finger. Everybody says stuff about Rose. You've said stuff about Rose, he said. He pointed that same finger in my chest, and that stopped me. I couldn't remember what I said about Rose in those first few days. I had thought plenty of things, and I'd heard more, and I'd said nothing. What about Dee Dee? I asked. You're telling me you never said anything to him about to the guys that you were hanging out with? Bench frowned and shook his head, which was a dead giveaway. I didn't tell Cameron about Dee Dee's stupid dice, he muttered. Right, but you told somebody, right? I stared at him. People always told me I had my mother's eyes. Frustrated, Bench threw his hands in the air. Fine, I told somebody. Big deal. I was with some guys on my team, and we were getting something to eat the night after the game. He paused, realizing what Elsie had just let slip. You know, the night after the game, that catch. The night that Rose showed up at Wolf's door and saved us from the undead horde. All of us but Bench. Well, there were 6 of us there, and one of them couldn't decide what to do, so I said, flip a coin, and then I started laughing. Yeah, you told them. I said I knew somebody who did that sort of thing all the time, and I was just kidding around, just a bunch of guys talking smack. They rolled their eyes, they called Dee Dee a freak, and that was it. I didn't know Cameron would find out about it. I didn't know he would do what he did. I mean, who really cares about what Dee Dee keeps in his pocket? Dee Dee cares, I snapped. And me, and you, or at least you used to. Bench rolled his eyes, trying to blow it off. Listen, I told you Cameron's not my friend. I can't control what he says or does. I can't control what any of them do. Any of them. He knew. I knew he knew. You still shouldn't have said anything. Well, maybe Dee Dee shouldn't carry toys with him where he goes. Maybe he needs to grow up too. Bench glared at me. And I glared right back. Funny. You know, that's what Cameron said right before he tried to stuff Dee Dee's head in a toilet. And where were you? I wanted to add, but I'm pretty sure he got the message. He took a step back and put more space between us. What do you want me to say? Bench shouted. You want me to apologize? Fine. I'm sorry you and Dee Dee got jumped in the bathroom, all right? I'm sorry I ever said anything about Dee Dee's stupid dice. I'm sorry I'm not always there to babysit you whenever you guys get in trouble. When you walk down the hall or you play your stupid games at lunch. I'm sorry not everybody likes you and that they don't like the people you hang out with. I'm sorry people call you names behind your back. Did I miss anything? How about I'm sorry for acting like a total jerk and completely dissing my friends? I didn't diss you, Bench insisted. You left us, I said. Bench groaned, putting both hands on his head. God, Frost, do you even hear yourself? You make it sound like we're some sort of superhero society. That's not how it is. You're wrong, I said. You find your people, I said, repeating the mantra that carried me through those first 2 weeks in 6th grade. My mother's promise that held up when a boy named JJ came and sat down next to me on the bus. You find your people, you make your tribe, I said. That's what I'm talking about, Bench said. There is no tribe. And if there is a tribe, I'm not the one who changed things. You come here and you try to blame me for screwing everything up. I'm not the one who invited that girl to come sit with us in the first place. That girl. Maybe he didn't know what to call her. I guess there were too many names to choose from. So you're going to blame this all on Rose, then? I'm not the one looking for someone to blame, Bench yelled, jamming a thumb to his chest, stepping up and closing the gas between us. So you don't like her, so the heck with the rest of us? I never said that, Bench said. Or maybe it's Wolf you have a problem with. Man, don't even go there, Bench snarled. Because you know. You heard the stuff that people were saying, I continued. Stop right now, Frost. I continued, because it's easier to go with the crowd than to stand up for your friends, right? That's not what I'm saying, Bench said. Well, then what are you saying? I'm saying it's not even about you, Bench shouted. He was so close now that I could count the heartbeats through his veins on his neck. I didn't back away, though, even though he kept yelling right in my face. Did it ever dawn on you that maybe I don't feel like I belong sometimes? That I might want to hang out with somebody else? That maybe, just maybe, I might not want to be with you guys all the time? I mean, I don't even like Dungeons and Dragons, he sputtered, and there was silence. We stood right next to each other's bodies stiff, locked in an epic, eyeball-burning staring contest. The kind that you expect to devolve into grunts and shoves as two kids wrestle each other to the ground. My lower lip started to tremble, and then I laughed. I laughed right in his face. I couldn't help it. It came out first as a snort and then a budding giggle and a high-pitched, uncontrollable, ridiculous laughing that was so hard that my chest hurt. Bench looked at me like I lost my mind, and then it hit him too, and he started laughing to himself. "Which part don't you like?" I asked breathlessly. "The dungeons or the dragons?" Bench shook his head. "None of it, man. I was faking the whole time." And for some reason, that just made me laugh harder. And we're going to stop there. Until next time.